what are the lessons for India and the world from Sri Lanka? Two countries have already swung into action. New Zealand, which was hit by a terror attack last month, and France, which has suffered at the hands of the ISIS. They are making the first moves. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern and French President Emmanuel Macron will host a meeting in Paris next month. Their agenda is clear: eliminate acts of violent extremism and terrorism from being shown online. They want world leaders and tech giants to agree to a pledge called the Christchurch Call.
Alongside President Emmanuel Macron, we will be co-hosting a meeting in Paris in mid-May in response to the way in which the internet, in particular online platforms, were used during the 15th March terrorist attack. What's clear is that what happened on the 15th of March was unprecedented in the way that it used online platforms to disseminate the terrorist attack. It was horrific. And I don't think anyone would argue, not anyone from tech companies or anyone from government, that that is the way that online platforms should be used. I actually think that any country alone, yes, can make changes in their domestic legislation, but what we're trying to tackle here is a global issue and therefore I think requires a global response.
Macron has already said that building international cooperation against terrorism is his top priority.
Chacun a le droit d'exercer sa foi sans peur et ses actes ignobles devront être punis. La coopération internationale contre le terrorisme exige la mobilisation de tous et elle sera d'ailleurs au cœur de nos priorités et nous y reviendrons.
So lesson number one, checks and balances on the internet. And lesson number two, the need for international cooperation. Before we discuss this, here's an observation on the ISIS, the group that claimed responsibility for the Easter Day attacks in Sri Lanka. The ISIS, as we speak, is not centered in any one country in the world. The ISIS may have lost its fighters in Syria. Last month, the US declared the end of the Islamic State's caliphate. That's after they captured Baghouz in Syria. But a territorial defeat of the Islamic State does not mean an end to ISIS, nor does it mean an end to other extremist Islamist groups inspired by the ISIS. And this is where the issue becomes complicated. ISIS has a strong presence online. Its sympathizers make slick videos. Between 2013 and 2016, the terrorist group marketed itself through magazines, newspapers, and chat rooms. ISIS prefers to communicate online. It always has. Failure to regulate the internet can be detrimental. The ISIS is proof. Countries and tech firms will need to get their act right to control the beasts that lurk on the internet. The post-Caliphate phase of the ISIS is not going to be easy to tackle. Besides, the Sri Lankan terror attacks show that the threat of terrorism is moving to newer places. Sri Lanka has a bloody history of conflict, but that conflict was on ethnic lines, not religious ones. This country is a tourist hub, so this attack was a warning. It gives a terror group the chance to make a wider statement. People of different countries have been made victims. It may be difficult to orchestrate an attack like this in a developed country with their surveillance capabilities, so their citizens are targeted in Sri Lanka in five-star hotels and churches. Perhaps the biggest lesson for the world is the need to perfect intelligence gathering and the ability to act on the intelligence that has been gathered. Communication needs to improve. Politics needs to be kept out of issues of national security. And here, I want to tell you the success story of Israel. 16 years ago, Tel Aviv was rocked by a suicide bomb blast. Two terrorists with British passports flew from the UK to Jordan to West Bank to Gaza and finally to Tel Aviv, where they carried out the attack. So there were different stops. Now, which security agency do you hold responsible? Which security agency failed to prevent this attack? In England, the Mossad was responsible. In Jordan, it was the Military Intelligence Directorate. In Tel Aviv, it was the Israeli police. There was a gap at some point. Israel identified that this miscommunication was hurting its efforts to prevent terrorism. So what did they do about it? Israel set up one big database that all the intelligence organizations can use. Simple decision, really, but it's a decision that needs to be made.